Hey guys, it's been a while since Gretchen and I have done one of these, but today we are going to do a joint review, Betwixt the Books reviews. And it's an even more special one because at least I did this book as a buddy read with two other YouTubers, Amanda Center and your robot friend, or Hillary. Both of them are so smart, and they made the experience of reading this book, even though in my case it was rereading this book, so much fun. They had such intelligent questions, and we were able to have discussions about the themes and tropes and different aspects of this book that just made it all the more wonderful. So thank you to you guys for doing that. Also highly recommend buddy reads. Awesome. And now we're going to talk about all of our thoughts and feelings on A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki.
I did not participate in that buddy read because it happened like right in the middle of all of my busy schedule, and I am so sad to have missed it. I actually just finished reading the book today, so this is very, very fresh for me. But yeah, really sorry I missed that buddy read. Next time, maybe my life won't be so ridiculous. Michaela got me into this book by just reading the back cover of it, and I loved the idea of a woman finding the diary of a Japanese girl and reading it and getting caught up in it. But as you know, I am not the most literarily inclined reader. Sometimes literary fiction books just kind of turn me off. This was not one of them. I thought the writing was beautiful. The way that the alternating narrators' voices were captured worked perfectly. I always knew who I was reading, and I was engaged with both of them on like a personal, deep level. And so I really loved it. It was beautiful. It was fourth wall breaking in a way that did cause some problems for me, but was also really cool. And I'll talk about those later, but yeah, Michaela, I told her when I started it, I was like, listen, you know how I feel about literary fiction, but it won me over completely. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I'm really happy that I finally did get around to finishing it.
I mentioned very briefly at the beginning of this that I had already read this book. I read it at the end of last year, but I listened to it on audio. And one of the things that Ruth Ozeki actually says at the end of that audiobook, because she's the one who reads it, is that there were certain aspects of the book that didn't quite translate well to audiobook, so they did their best to incorporate them into the story, and I was intrigued. I wanted to know what was different, and mainly it's the incorporation of the footnotes into the text itself, which I think they did a flawless job of for the audiobook, and I loved the audiobook. I flew through it. Sometimes I sort of drag my feet with certain audiobooks if I'm not enjoying it, but that one was one that I could not wait to lay in bed with the lights off and listen to. Picking it up a second time, I was apprehensive. I was nervous if I was going to enjoy it as much because I was taking it in a different way, and there would be different things that I would notice. I know that for a fact that I pay less attention in audiobooks to the structure of the grammar and the way that the sentences are constructed, and that's something that I have a hard time breaking myself out of when I'm reading something physically. But then again, that's also my favorite part of literature, is how sentences are constructed and how that sort of makes us feel. So I was excited and apprehensive. It was a mixed feeling. I'm so glad to say that I was not disappointed at all. It was still fantastic. Highly recommended. I heard about it first from Jen Campbell, and then when I was doing research into the Man Booker Prize, I realized that it was a Man Booker candidate. I was like, okay, fine, all of these things are telling me I should read this book. I read it again, still love it. I hardly ever reread books, so take my word for it. This is a good one.
So I mentioned something to me that was not so great, and it kind of, I don't know, it's this mashup of my favorite part of the book turning into like my least favorite part of the book. And I mentioned that it's kind of fourth wall breaking because the main character, well, one of the main characters is this older woman novelist of Asian descent whose name is Ruth. So it's kind of like, Ruth Ozeki, Ruth the character, they're not the same, but it's like kind of the same. And finding this diary, and she thinks she's reading it in real time and everything. And then towards the end of the novel, it breaks the fourth wall a little far. And I don't, of course, want to spoil anything, but this weird thing kind of happens about words disappearing and reappearing, and that kind of broke the illusion for me because I liked how for like 3/4 of the book it walks this really fine edge of being this not quite magical realism, but almost. I don't know. It was like this really beautiful space that it was occupying. And then towards the end, it went one step too far for me. And while I really appreciate what it was saying and what it was doing, that was kind of frustrating because it tossed me out of the world a little bit. But still, I love it. It was doing such a good job, and it does such a good job for a majority of the book that, I mean, I only took it down 1 star. For me to go above 3 stars on Goodreads means that there was definitely something in it that grabbed me. But yeah, that ending kept it from being a full 5 stars for me.
I didn't really have anything that bothered me, so instead of talking about that, I'm going to try and combat what Gretchen just said, and maybe convince her why she is wrong in this instance by talking about some of the themes in this book, and I'm also going to be referencing some of the things that Amanda and Hillary and I talked about when we were doing the buddy read, because this was something that they picked up on too, and we discussed it, this weird autobiographical element of Ruth being called Ruth. I believe that Amanda was the one who said that she wished she had a different name because it made you question it. And then I brought up the fact that maybe a theme in this book is an author and its creation in a way. We talked about how the autobiographical elements of Ruth in the real world and interacting with this diary is like a writer interacting with a book she created. And there's a lot of scenes that you can read as acts of an author. Her not wanting to share Now's diary with other people because they would change it or they wouldn't see it the correct way could be viewed as like an author writing their book and publishing it and having other people read it and not feeling the same way about it. When her husband listens to the story and picks up on something that she didn't pick up on and she didn't see, it could be like when somebody or a lot of people say that a certain aspect of a book has to do with this other aspect of something. It's a metaphor, something the author didn't intend for that to be there. The idea of the ending changing, because there was an ending in sight and then halfway through they decided for another ending to be there. The idea of, spoiler alert, I'll put up my spoiler finger, the idea of her physically traveling through time to move something somewhere to make it all work out in the end is such an author intervention move. And, you know, it's honestly one of the biggest themes of this book is it autobiographical? Is it actually a story about what it's like to create a story? So, I don't know. That's one of the things that we found really interesting, and I'm going to put my spoiler finger down now.
I have absolutely no argument with anything Michaela just said, and she explained what was so cool and fascinating about the book better than I ever could have. However, I am still going to stand by my opinion that the dream sequence there at the end just was one step too far for me. And before that, it was able to occupy this liminal space where I kept guessing, and after that, it just felt like it moved into pure fantasy for me. And that was not great, because before that, like I said, that beautiful tension that she's just describing, where you're just like, what is happening? And then that broke for me. So
what Gretchen said, completely understandable. The first time I listened to it, I felt the same way too. The ending was a bit much. I think I feel differently having discussed it with people, and some of the other things we discussed along the way was the brilliant ability of Ruth to create characters that you really empathize with on both sides of the spectrum, her ability to hide things in the narrative that then comes to light that great mystery writers are able to do. We discussed various things like the Jungle Crow and what that represented. Now's relationship with men and how she, her sexual relationships in a way, and all of those things and how those are affected by things that are happening. So all of these things came up in discussion, and it made the book all the better for it. So if you have not picked up this book, again, we both thought it was a really great book and recommend it, but I definitely recommend reading it with somebody so that you can talk about things. Because when there's something that bothers you, sometimes another person can weed out what it is that is meant to be doing and whether that's important or not.
And that, people, is why we do these book reviews together. And I do this because she's on my computer screen right here, not because I'm vaguely gesturing to a wall or something. We hope that you have enjoyed some of our major thoughts on this book, but of course we have many, many more. So please, if you want to start talking about this book with somebody, go down in the comments and start talking about it with us. We would love to talk to you, both of us. Do the thing. Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you soon. Bye!